This podcast is on the optical sense, which means your vision, translated into what organ? The eye. And so it is on your nervous system notes, page 6. It's also a full page of everything about the eye on the official pictures with check marks to know. And then also on the lab pack, page 50 and 51, we have some eye structures listed for the cow eye that we're going to be dissecting, and the parts and what they do. So you might check that out also. So let's start from the beginning here and go through this. It's the optical sense, which is your sight. And what's the organ responsible for your sight? Your eye. What cranial nerve is it? Number 2, the optic nerve. Okay, number 2. And there are 3 cranial nerves that run your 6 eye muscles, which is amazing. Number 3, cranial nerve number 3, the oculomotor. Number 4, the trochlear. And number 6, the abducens. And so those aid in your eyesight, movement of the eye. And so right there, movement of the eye. And optic nerve number 2 makes your retina, which actually is responsible for your vision. All right, and so where is all this information interpreted and stored? Everything that you see, it's all cataloged in your occipital lobe in the back part of the cerebrum. Right, the occipital lobe, right there. So now we're going to go over the surface structures associated with the eye, okay? And so I have a drawing on the board, and here it is, a little messy, but here we go. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the eyebrow, okay? Your eyebrow, and most of this is common sense. It's made out of thin skin, it's made out of hair, which is thin skin, epidermal derivatives. And what does an eyebrow do? Well, it basically catches debris, keeps it from getting into the eye, and so it helps keep the eye sort of clean and directly. That would be your eyebrow right there. All right, then we come down to the eye itself right here. And so you have eyelids, an upper eyelid and a lower. Right here, superior and inferior eyelids right there. And they're made out of thin skin also because you have eyelashes right here, eyelashes. And so the real term for eyelashes is palpary, okay, palpary. And so I can put that on the board here. And so eyelash would be right here, eyelash, palpary, palpary. And so what do your eyelashes do? Basically, they help keep the surface of the eye clean because the eyelashes themselves will collect dirt and dust and whatever debris might be falling onto them. Also, when the eyelids close, it cleans the surface. So it's sort of like cleaning a floor. And so that's a nice thing for it to do also, to keep it free of debris. All right, and then the whole shape of the eye, the whites of your eye right here, the white area, that is called the sclera, And so it's made out of dense reg CT, and it goes all the way around the back, and it makes your eye look like a golf ball, actually. And so the DRCT gives your eyeball its shape. And so the whites of the eye, I just put orange in here to give it some variation right here. And so if I take the dense reg CT out like this, that is the whites of your eye. And so, but it is made out of dense reg CT, and that's called the sclera right there. And then sitting in the center of your eye, we have a structure right here known as the iris. And the iris has ET and CT granules in the inside of it, giving it different colors, and I'll discuss this at the end, okay? And so the iris has these different granules in them. They're all the same granule. They're melanin granules, ET granules, or they're CT granules called chromatin granules. And what do? The amount of granules that you have in here deflects the light rays, okay? And so that's the function for the iris, is deflection of the light rays. So this is made out of stratified squamous, ET, and dense irreg, CT. makes your iris. And then in the middle, there's an opening called the pupil. And the pupil, essentially, what does it do? It's going to allow light rays to come through. So it's a lumen. It's actually a space right there. And so it'll allow light rays to go in to the back of the eye so they can focus on your retina, right? So pupil opening for light rays to do the focusing. Absolutely have to have that. All right, now in the corners of your eye, right here, the corners of your eyes, right here, we have something called conjunctiva. Conjunctiva, and it's made out of simple columnar ET cells, the purple cells right here, with goblets in them. That's why in the morning when you wake up sometimes, you've got the crusty stuff in the middle corner of your eyes, and that's because of the mucus coming out of the goblets right there. What else is in the conjunctiva right here? Capillaries, loose ET, fenestrated capillaries are going to be right there. And that provides the plasma that's leaking out, will also help feed the surface structures on the eye right there. So the conjunctiva is rather important because loose ET, the fenestrated capillaries are going to leak out that plasma with good food, hormones, and oxygen to keep structures out here in good shape. All right, so that's the conjunctiva. So if you ever have bloodshot eyes, what happens is your capillaries in here and the corners of your eyes pop, and they just sort of explode temporarily and let out a lot of blood cells, which they normally don't do, and that makes your eyes look very bloodshot. Right. All right, what else is associated with this surface right here? So we've got everything. We've got the iris, the pupil, the conjunctiva on both sides right here. We have your eyelids made out of thin skin, cleaning your surface. And then there's a strange structure right here in the corner of your eyes. It looks like a bump. And the conjunctiva a lot of times is over on top of it, but it's just a skin bump. And it isn't for anything. Your eyes don't attach there. And so the skin of your eyelids just sort of come together there and make this skin bump. And it's called the carbuncle of all words. And so really no function at all, right? So now what's left on the outside surface or associated with the outside surface of the eye are the three sets of glands. Glands, they're all made out of simple cube ET. They all have a duct. And so the ones that you have the most of are tear glands, okay? Tear glands are called lacrimal glands up here. Lacrimal glands, they make tears, and tears are a form of sweat. That's why they taste salty, because they are. They're like eccrine sweat glands. They've got a pH of 5, and they're made out of sodium chloride and water. And so it has enzymes in it also, your tears. And so what do the tears do when they come out onto the surface of the eye? The enzymes destroy debris, bacteria, and so it cleans the surface of the eyes, keeps them lubricated. It also prevents friction. When your eyelids close all the time and open, then basically it prevents that watery base so that a lot of friction, heat doesn't build up and everything goes smoothly. And so that's what your lacrimal glands do. The biggest one is right above, right here, right at superior, right here. Small one underneath, right here, and then another one out on the corner of your eye. So you have 3 sets of those. All right, and then another gland is called the ciliary glands. Ciliary glands. And so cilia should remind you of hairs, and these are usually associated with your eyelashes right here. And so every eyelash will have one of these sweat glands. It's another sweat gland, has a pH of 5, makes enzymes that are going to come out, and they're going to clean your eyelashes specifically. And so this is a nice thing to have done. And so it keeps your eyelashes in good shape, cleans them, and it also goes onto the surface of the eye to help clean that surface of bacteria or any kind of debris. Also, if you've ever heard of somebody having a sty, it looks like a big pimple associated with one of your eyelashes. It gets huge. All you have to do is take a hot wash rag and just apply some pressure, and the heat will eventually pop it, and that's called a sty. And so what happens is the duct gets clogged with crud from your eyes, and so then bacteria in here will start reproducing and make it explode, become very large, and so that's why the whole thing swells up. And then usually adding heat to it with a hot water wash rag, usually after a couple hours, if you keep doing that, it will just pop like a pimple and you'll get relief. Okay, so those are called ciliary glands. Every eyelash has one. And then the last gland that's the most fun, I think, to talk about is a tarsal gland up here. Tarsal gland, they also are associated with each eyelash. Each eyelash has its own tarsal gland up here and simple QBT cells. And basically, there's a mite that lives in there, a mite. And the scientific name, the genus name is Demodex. And so at night, when your body temperature drops, this mite, there's only one per gland, it comes out here and it goes up on your eyelashes and it cleans the crud off your eyelashes. And so if you're a girl, or even a guy could wear mascara, if you left some mascara on your eyelashes or mucus or salt from all the sweat coming out of the glands, the mite will eat the crud on the eyelashes. So also at night when it comes out here, it also goes and finds the other sex. And so they actually have sex on your eyelashes at night, and then the female goes back into her little gland, her tarsal gland, her adenomere there, and she lays one egg, and then she dies and that egg hatches and now you got a new mite. Right. So all newborn babies, they do not have mites. They actually come from the mother, right? From the mother or from other children or anybody in the family, because at night, if you're around this baby sleeping there, they're gonna fall off your eyelashes and they will go onto the child's or the baby's skin. And so that's how they're inherited by newborns, from the mother. Exactly. All right, so what else does the tarsal gland make? This is actually like a sebaceous gland. It makes oil. It makes oil with a pH of 9, just like sebum for your hairs. And so the oil comes out and basically it lubricates your eyelashes, and it also helps lubricate the eyelids so that basically when they close, it's a nice smooth surface and it helps prevent friction. So that's everything, I think, associated with the surface of the eye, except for one more very important part, and it's called the cornea. The cornea, and the cornea is made out of stratified squamous ET and loose ET fin. So where is the cornea? It's gonna cover the iris only, right here. It covers the iris only. It's like a cap on top of it. And so if you know what a contact lens is, it's essentially what it does. And so I have hard contact lenses, and mine is exactly the size of my iris. It covers the whole thing. It's very large. Soft contacts are even bigger, and it covers even more of that area. So anyway, the cornea, what's it do? It protects the iris. That's its function, is protection of the iris. And also the shape of the cornea helps in focusing your light rays that are going to go through your pupil. So if you have a really high cornea that's stacked with a lot of stratified squamous ET, you're going to have some vision issues. And I will discuss that a little bit later. So this is going to essentially protect the iris and help in focusing light rays, right? Focusing the light rays over the pupil. All right, now the last thing I want to talk about is how do you get different eye colors? And so right here, I made an iris, okay? There's my pupil in the middle. And so your iris colors basically are determined by the granules, the amount of granules in your stratified squamous ET cells. And so the granules are ET granules called melanin, or CT granules called chromatin. It's the same thing. It's protein granules. So if you have black or brown eyes, you've got a lot of granules. And every time the light comes in, it'll hit a granule and it will deflect. It'll deflect and go out. And so this is like having natural sunglasses. And so usually people with black and brown eyes, they don't really need sunglasses when they go outside because they have so many granules in their iris. Then when you have a little bit less granules, you get green or hazel color eyes. That's 75%. So green to hazel color. And then 50% gives you blue. You don't have a lot of granules. You got a lot of space in here, so a lot of light goes in your pupil. It doesn't get deflected away from that pupil. And blue-eyed people, they usually grab for their sunglasses immediately when they leave a building. And then violet eyes, purple eyes, and there are some people, very rare, but they do have naturally violet, purple color eyes. It's usually a light purple. They have very few granules, only 25% floating in their cells. And then if you have an albino, basically they lack melanin in their skin in general, and that's going to be the same in their iris. And so what you're seeing is the reflection of blood vessels in the back of the retina comes out of the pupil and makes this red color or pink color. And that's why albinos have 0% color, and red is not a true color for your eyes. So anyway, so that's a little summary of how we get the different eye colors. Now we're going to go over the internal anatomy of the eye, and you can find it on your official picture sheet right dead center in the middle on the sensory page. And also I am going to post on Moodle my official drawing that I did. And some of it got cut off a little bit, but I think you can still read it, or you can redraw it from the podcast and make it look like my board drawing, okay? All right, so now let's go over the parts of the internal anatomy of the eye. So the first thing is this rounded area that's out here, okay? Out here, this is the cornea right here going around, and the cornea is made out of your skin, stratum corneum and stratum granulosum. That's where they get the name cornea, because it's stratum corneum, the dead layer. And then there's a little layer of loose CT underneath it. So this cornea is going to protect the front part of the eye. So what does it protect? It's going to protect the iris right here, the iris that's made out of stratified squamous CT and dense irregular CT underneath it, the little circle layer right there. And so the iris, you know already, deflects light rays, and it's got melanin in it if it's the ET cells. And then the CT cells underneath, the dense irregular, it's going to have chromatin granules in it to also deflect the light rays, okay? So that's what the iris does, is deflection of light rays, so that the light rays can go through the space, the hole in the center called the pupil. That's usually always black, except in albinos it would be red due to the reflection of the light, the blood vessels in the back. All right, so now right behind the pupil is the lens right here, and the lens is also made out of stratified squamous ET with some loose ET with fenestrated capillaries feeding it right there. So that is right behind the pupil. It's clear, and so you can't see it, and so, but it sits right behind there. All right, now one more thing about the front part of the eye right here. Underneath the cornea, there's a liquid, an actual liquid, and it's high in water, a little bit of protein in it, and so it comes from the loose CT cells. The loose CT secrete this, and it fills up the space in front of the iris. So it helps give the cornea a nice, smooth, rounded shape like that. And so what do we call this liquid in the inside here? It's called the aqueous humor, made out of the loose CT, water-like matrix, and it's going to give shape to the cornea. Now the shape of the cornea is very important in focusing, and I'm going to go over that last, how we actually focus, but you have to have a nice rounded shape to that cornea so that the light rays will focus correctly. All right, so now this is the anterior part of the eye, the front part of the eye. One more time, the cornea, made out of stratified squamous ET. It has some loose CT underneath it to feed it and to also make the aqueous humor, the liquid that's going to give it its shape. Also, this liquid also keeps the iris wet, okay, the iris. And what does the iris do? It's going to reflect light rays. The pupil allows light rays to go through the lens, and basically it's going to help in focusing the lens right there. All right, so now behind the iris, there is a muscle right here. And I made it green right here, and it looks like it's serrated, like it's got layers to it. And it's called the ciliary muscle or ciliary body, and it's made out of smooth muscle right here. And what does it do? It controls the size of the pupil. That's what its function is, okay? So the ciliary body does the size of the pupil. And that is a reflex. That's a reflexive thing, because the amount of light rays being allowed in here is going to determine the size of the pupil. So if you're in really a dark area and can't see very well, that pupil is going to open up, dilate, so that you can get more light rays in so you can focus. If you're in bright sunlight, it's going to make this pupil become much smaller because you don't need as many light rays to focus, okay? And so that's what the ciliary muscle does. And so that's reflexive, and so it looks serrated, and you'll see that in lab. And then the muscle is held onto the lens right here by some dense regular CT suspensory ligaments, okay? Suspensory ligaments on both sides of the lens. They're actually going to attach it to the muscle to help keep it right behind the pupil, right there. And so the lens is going to focus the light rays. That's its job, okay? And then we already know what the muscle does, controls the size of the pupil, and the suspensory ligaments, dense reg CT, are just going to hold on to the lens and attach it to the muscle itself. All right, so that's right behind the iris, all of this. All right, now in the back part of the eye, we call this the posterior part of the eye, we have two gel sacs right here, two gel sacs. And so they're called the vitreous humor, vitreous or vitreous humor. And it's made out of loose CT gel sacs, right? So the gel, it's like jelly, and so that's the loose CT matrix. And it's made right before you're born, actually. It's amazing how late in the development of the eye that these sacs are made. And so what does the vitreous humor actually do? Well, right here, it pushes against the lens, and so it helps support the lens right here, keep it in the middle of the pupil. And so it's for lens support in the front. And in the posterior part, it holds the retina down, which is the pink layer right here. And so it's going to push against that, and that keeps the retina nice and flat in the back. All right, and so that's what the vitreous humor does, the loose CT gel sacs. All right, now, what makes the posterior part of the eye right here? Well, there's two layers of connective tissue. On the outside of the eye, going all the way around, and even up here in the front, we have the whites of your eye, okay, the whites of your eye. And so that layer is called the sclera. The sclera is the whites of your eye, and basically the sclera is going to give shape to the overall eye. It holds the shape of the eye, keeps it nice and compacted, and so it's made out of good old dense reg CT, okay? And so some people's whites of their eyes have more yellow, a yellow look to them, and that means there's more collagen in it. Some people have whites of the eye that are actually more blue color, bluey or gray color. That means you have more elastic fibers in it. But if you have nice white eyes, then basically you got an even balance of collagen and elastic. So the sclera is the whites of the eye going all the way around it, and it makes it look like a golf ball, and you'll see that in lab. And then underneath the sclera is another layer, and it actually is black. It is truly black, and it's called the choroid layer. Choroid layer, and it's made out of dense bright CT, and it has chromatin granules in it. Chromatin granules, lots of them. And why does it have chromatin granules? Because this is like the inside of a camera. You want this all black so that when the light rays come through, it can focus on different areas in the back of the eye. So this is to basically help the focusing of the light rays, so that you want it absolutely dark in there. And so this is the black layer called the choroid layer. All right, now the most important part of the eye, if you had to say this, is in the back, and it's the optic nerve that comes in and makes your retina, okay? And so here's the optic nerve, which is cranial nerve number 2. It comes in back here, and immediately it splits. It splits. Half of it goes up and sits on the choroid layer here. Half of it goes up, and then half of it turns and goes down here. So it splits. So right here in the middle, there are no dendrites. No dendrites. And so where it splits right here, that's called your blind spot. And so the blind spot is really called the optic disc right there, the optic disc, okay? And so there's no cones and rods right in that area. So the retina comes up. So the retina is really the optic nerve that just splits. And so this pink tissue is the optic nerve coming up and going down right there. And then when it's split open, then it's got these little projections off of it, these little projections. And these are all dendrites. They're all dendrites waiting for the light to hit them so that they can create electricity and then send it back to your occipital lobe to process the information of what you're seeing and store it. And so these are the dendrites right here. And we have 2 shapes to the dendrites, okay? On the retina, the dendrites are either going to be cone-shaped, which is like a triangle right there, and rod-shaped, like little trees, okay? And so you'll see they alternate. You've got cones, rod, cones, rod, cones, rods, all the way up. And then there's an area up here that is cones only, the cone zone only up there. And so right in here, there's still the same thing. There's still dendrites, but there's cones only in that area. So now let's talk about first, before we talk about the 2 specific spots right there, let's go over here and talk about the dendrites, okay? So the cones, what do the cones do? When light hits the cones, they're responsible for you seeing in color, red, green, and blue. Red, green, and blue creates all your different colors when they're mixed, and so RGB, right? So cones allow you to see in color. Cones also allow you to see in bright light, very bright light, and also it's responsible for your visual acuity. Acuity means sharpness or clearness of your vision. So it's very focused, well focused, it's not fuzzy. And so that's what acuity means, your focusing ability, how sharp and how clear your vision is. So that's what the cones do, okay? Then the rods that look like little trees, they're for night vision. Night vision, so, and dim light. Night vision and dim light. And so as you age, your rods are the first ones to break down and die. And so that's why a lot of older people don't like to drive at night, because they can't see as well, because they have less cones. They've already died and basically are gone. And so the other thing your rods are responsible for are black and white vision, so that you can see black and white. And then the last thing is peripheral vision. Peripheral vision means seeing things coming at you from the sides, and that's always tested on your driver's license. Also, your peripheral vision, is it decreasing because your rods are dying, like with age? And so that doesn't happen to everybody, but it's very common, okay? So that's what these dendrites are going to do when the light hits them. They're going to do these three things for cones, and then these three things for the rods. So over here, on the top part of the retina, okay, the superior part of the retina, there's two areas, and one is very important right here. It's called the fovea centralis. Fovea centralis is your focusing spot, okay? It is the focusing spot. And so this means your light rays have to end up on these cones and rods for you to be able to see, okay, somehow or other. And then right above it is the yellow spot. You usually see the yellow spot. So when your optometrist looks into your eye, he can see this yellow jelly-like area, and it's called the yellow spot, but its real name is macula lutea. The macula lutea, and it's made out of all cones, no rods in that area, and it's always above your focusing spot. Can you see where your focusing spot is? No, you cannot see the fovea centralis. It doesn't look any different than the rest of the retina, but where you have only cones, it tends to make it yellowy, a yellow spot there, okay? And so that's called the macula lutea. So if you've ever heard of anybody with macular degeneration in the eye, then that means the cones are getting destroyed. And one of the most common diseases or disorders that causes that is what? Diabetes, right? So if you're diabetic, the sugar that will be feeding these nerve cells, the sugar will destroy the cones first. And so that's what macular degeneration refers to, is something's happening to those cones and you can't see as well, right? So your color vision, your bright light, your acuity, all that's going to be destroyed because the cones are getting destroyed in that specific area. All right, so that's the basic anatomy of the eye, okay? So the optic nerve comes in and then it's going to split and make the retina with the cones and the rods. And also, if you've ever heard of a detached retina, this is sort of interesting because there's blood vessels. There's going to be blood vessels come in here, and BVs are going to sit in here underneath the retina, blood vessels. And what happens is when you have high blood pressure, it means these blood vessels are going to push the retina forward. They're actually going to move this all forward, push it forward, and then the retina is detaching from the choroid layer. And so that makes you not see as well, right? It also makes you see stars, like white stars or flashes of light, because it's detaching. It should be laid right on top of the choroid layer. So that is called detached retinas. And then if it's severe enough, they have to actually go back in and you have to have eye surgery to attach that back, lay it back down nice and smooth so that you'll be able to see again, okay? So now I'm going to explain how we actually see, okay? Now we're going to talk about how you actually focus. And there's three types of vision that you're probably familiar with. Normal vision. The real term for normal vision up here is emmetropic, okay? Emmetropic means normal vision. So this means you have a normal cornea. Everything is normal about your eye. You've got a nice rounded cornea. Everything's good, all right? So your vision is really dependent upon the shape of the cornea, okay? The shape of the cornea. So this is called normal vision, a good cornea, nice rounded. I put normal cornea, emmetropic. Now some of you are nearsighted, and the term for nearsighted means myopia. That's what I am. And so I have trouble seeing distance, but I can see close up just fine without glasses or contacts. And so nearsighted people have a cornea that looks like a mountain. Exactly. And so a lot of times they have to have a special surgery called the LASIK surgery, and they actually shave this down to make it more rounded so that they can have normal vision again. And then the last type of vision issues is called hyperopia. Hyperopia, which means farsighted. And these people, they can see distance really great. They can see down a highway, no problem. But they have fuzzy vision close up, so they need glasses for close work. And what does their cornea look like? Why, it's flat. It's flat across. It's not a mountain. It's not normal and round. It's just a flat. And so the light rays don't focus on our focusing spot, fovea centralis, very well. So now I'm going to show you how this all works. So I'm going to use black for normal vision first, and I have a sun or a light bulb that's going to provide light beams, okay? And these are going to be black light beams, all right? So here comes light, okay? Here comes light, and some of the light beams are going to hit the iris. Okay, that's great. Hits the iris, and they're deflected. Okay, they're deflected off like sunglasses. All right, that's nice. And then some of the light beams are going to come in here, and they're going to go through the lens. And so if you've had physics, everybody knows that light travels in a straight line like this. And so here it's going to hit the side right here of the inside wall, and then some light beams will come through here, and they're going to come and go like here and hit on the side. And now once they hit that black layer, the choroid layer, now they're going to bounce one more time. And so once they hit this black layer of dense regular, the light beam is going to go like this, and so it's going to hit the focusing spot. And then this one will go like this and go across like this. And right where it intersects, right where this intersects, the two light beams, that is right on the focusing spot. So that means you have normal vision. You can see great distance, you can see close up, you don't need glasses of any sort. And so that's how that's going to go. It's where the light beams intersect. Is it going to hit this spot or not? All right, now that is normal vision. Okay, normal. So now I'm going to change my cornea. I'm going to change the shape of the cornea, and the cornea is going to be like myopic, okay, myopia. And so I'm going to make a mountain like this, really tall, like mine. It's like a great ski hill right here. And so this will be myopia, the nearsighted people. All right, so nice high cornea, very high. All right, now here comes my light beams, okay? Here comes my light beams. And so my light beams are gonna come through here, and so they're gonna go through my pupil like this, right here, and hit right here. And so they're going to come through, they're coming through the light beams, and they're going to hit high up on the choroid, right there. They're going to go through the lens, but they hit high up, and then they're going to bounce one more time like this, and one more time like this, like this. And where do they intersect? Where do they intersect? Right here. Here's the intersection between my light beams. Where is that? My gosh, it's not even on the focusing spot. It's way in front, right here. And so that means you can see close up, but you can't see distance because you can't get your light rays back here on the fovea centralis. So this is myopia when the light beams intersect in front of the fovea centralis, because you've got too high of a good old cornea. You've got a mountain of a cornea right here. And so you need to get that shaved down. And if you're in your 20s or even in your 30s, this is a great surgery to have, LASIK, because it can improve your vision quite a bit back to normal, okay? All right, but you gotta make sure you get a good doctor. All right, so then the last type of vision is hyperopia, farsighted. And so for farsightedness, what is your cornea gonna look like? Well, it looks like this. It comes out here and it's flat. It's flat like this. And so this is the hyper one, flat cornea right there. So this is myopia, and this is going to be hyper. My hyperopia, flat cornea, okay? And this is ME, normal, pretty round. And so now, what color should I make the light beams for this? Let's do purple. Let's do purple. And so now, hyperopia, here comes my light beams, all right? So you got a flat one. So the light beams, man, you got a flat cornea. They are really gonna let the light rays in. They are just gonna come through here, and then they're gonna go way, way back here. And then they're gonna bounce off one more time, and like this. And my gosh, they intersect way back here, way back behind the fovea centralis, almost to the optic disc. And so way far back. And so that gives them great distance vision, but very poor close-up vision because it's not close enough to this focusing spot. And so that's how you get your 3 different types of vision, okay? All has to do with the shape of the good old cornea. Now there are 3 more terms that you need to be aware of that can affect your vision. And so I put them on the board here at the end. And so the first one is called astigmatism. Some of you have astigmatism. And what does that mean? It means your cornea or your lens is wavy, has waves in it. And so here it is. Here's a cornea with waves, and here's a lens that will have waves. Can both of them have waves? Sure they can. And so what's that gonna do when your light beams come through? Oh my gosh, it's gonna be like crazy. And so the problem with this is you're gonna have depth distortion. You're gonna have trouble with depth distortion. And give you an example. I play tennis, and I used to be a college tennis player, and I can hit that back line usually really easily, but I have astigmatism, and my contacts are not corrected for it. And so I always think when I hit the ball, it's always hitting perfectly on that back line, and then my friends call it out. I don't think it's out. It looks perfect to my eyes back there. And so they're gonna know you're missing by this much. That's because I don't have my astigmatism, my lenses corrected to make it perfect vision so that I know I'm really hitting that line. I'm either missing it behind it or in front of it. And so you get depth distortion with astigmatism. That's the problem, okay? Right, then another term we like to use with vision is cataracts. And so cataracts usually happen in older people, and what it is, the lens are breaking down. The lens is made out of stratified squamous ET, and so the cells, the protein is clumping, and so it makes for cloudy lenses. And so they've got protein clumps in there, and they look like white clouds, actually. And so when you look through and see out here, this area, maybe the periodic table will be all fuzzy over there because I got a clump of protein from my cells breaking down. And so cataracts are just a lens problem, and it's just from the breakdown of the stratified squamous ET cells, makes protein clumps, and then it looks like you're looking through a forest, a white forest, right, a fuzzy forest. So that's cataracts, and they have wonderful surgery to replace your lens now, and it's like immediately you see perfectly. All right, and then presbyopia is the last term. Presbyopia means old age eyes, old age. And so I know some of you might have grandparents that go to the eye doctor a lot, and the problem with that is 1 week they see perfectly, and the next week it's like, oh, I can't see so good. And so what happens is the muscle tone, there's 6 muscles that hold each eye in the eye sockets, in the orbits. And so those eyes lose tone as you get older. And so one week they might have perfect vision, but the next week they might be myopia, they might be nearsighted. And then 2 months later, they could be farsighted. And it all has to do with those eye muscles. And yes, there are exercises for those eye muscles that you can do. Rotate them up and down, sideways, to try to maintain that tone. But sometimes you can do the exercises and it doesn't even work. So anyway, that's the term presbyopia, means old age eyes.